Hello, I'm Andrew Hara, the host of the Bomb Squad. I wanted to tell you about my movies. All are available on Tubi, which is a free streaming service. The last one is a zombie drama about how a pandemic and isolation could drive a group of people mad. When the virus hits, John finds himself alone and scared until he meets Michael, his protector. But when Karina, another survivor, enters the mix, everything that John and Michael knew will be turned on its head. The last one is a zombie virus movie that's somehow even more relevant today. Plus, it has zombies. Check it out. Borderland is a mexploitation film about living in El Paso. When Sarah finds herself in debt to the cartels, she has until sunrise to find some missing monies with the help of her executioner. Borderland is a true midnight movie and a lot of fun. Finally, the documentary Humble Spirits tells the story of the Hahn family, including champion Jennifer Hahn from El Paso, Texas. The entire Hahn family has grown up in the combat sports and has helped shape who they are both in and out of the ring. Humble Spirits, a family of fighters, is the perfect documentary for boxing fans of all ages. Check out Tubi to watch all my films. And now, let's start the show. What's up, guys? Welcome to round two of Andrew Forgots How Boring a Movie Is. We're continuing our streak that you'll see the next one up next week, but I guess this whole month. Going back to Strange Days and Mission to Mars, I took Williams' advice of picking movies that aren't that good. But nevertheless, we have an episode to film, and we weren't going to watch two movies this week. It's crazy talk. So today on the Bomb Squad, we are talking 1986's Cobra, directed by Sylvester Stallone, despite what the credits say. Starring Sylvester Stallone, starring Bridget Nielsen, starring the dude from Highlander who doesn't have a name. I think he's just the dude from Highlander. And then starring a bunch of people that you've seen, but you don't know. It was actually directed by someone else, but according to everyone, including the director, Stallone actually directed it. And also, according to everyone else, the actual director was a huge dick on set and everyone hated him. So I guess best case scenario is that Stallone directed it. Anyway, this movie was so originally for Beverly Hills Cop, which was Eddie Murphy's big break. They hired Sylvester Stallone, and Sylvester Stallone was like, "What are all these jokes?" And so he took the script and took it away for a weekend and completely wrote a different movie that was full of violence and cults and nonsense. And then he gave it back to him, and they're like, "What the fuck are you doing? You're fired." And so then they hired Eddie Murphy. The rest is history. It also like he wouldn't have worked in Beverly Hills
So,
Cop. What
so
were they
this is
thinking?
like a first draft of Beverly Hills Cop,
No, this is
or an
his
alternate
take.
draft, I
Yeah, this is
guess.
essentially what he would have done if he had made Beverly Hills Cop. And also, if he didn't really understand what the point of Beverly Hills Cop was.
That's so funny because
Another
I kept wondering if this was intentionally a parody or not, and it's like, oh, it's not intentionally a parody.
Yeah. And another thing is in 1995, this movie is based on a book called Fair Game, and in 1995, Cindy Crawford made her debut in a movie called Fair Game, and her acting was so bad that she never made a movie again. And it's funny because I've seen that movie and they do not seem very similar. So I don't know who took liberties. I'm going to guess Stallone, but I will also guess
Like,
that if you had to watch one of them, watch this one because the other one, unless you're like super into Cindy Crawford. And also, Cindy Crawford, come back to acting. It has not stopped your daughter one bit not knowing how to act, and she's killing it. So
mm.
come back to a star in Fair Game 2. Fair Game meets Cobra. And so, okay, guys. Also, I'll talk about this later. Josh, this is the longest intro ever because I'm just reaching. I'm reaching for things. The director was George P. Costum. The director's name is George P. Cosmatos, which sounds like a name that George Costanza would make up if he had to make up a director name.
Is that the
Um, And so
Is that the father of? Yeah, yeah. It's the father of Panos Cosmatos, the guy who did Beyond the Black Rainbow. So
it would be weird if it wasn't.
right.
Didn't he do
Well,
Mandy?
not a lot of Greek directors. I don't know. No, he didn't do. He did the one really good. Oh wait, did he do Mandy? Am I
I think
crazy?
he
He
did
did.
Mandy.
And he did the really good Guillermo del Toro episode of that Lovecraft show. His was the best with Peter Weller.
Okay, I
So
guess we're just lying on the podcast now. Like, keep it like when he says the best episode of that show, he means in the way that Cobra is the best adaptation of Fair. Josh, tell us what this movie is about. This is the
this
bomb squad where we look at the good side of movies. And
I know I was gonna say you're not
he's
even
had a rough
giving
fucking week.
you're not giving Marion Cobretti a chance to shine.
Give us,
This movie,
give
the
us
plot of this
a
movie,
plot synopsis, but only since it's just the boys today. Give it from the the uh, the fucking point of view of the dumbest security guard ever. Or you can also do it from the dumbest van truck guy ever. They both have the same fate.
I was gonna
Josh, tell us what this
say,
movie's
because I've been watching a lot of old Simpsons. The plot of this movie is basically the plot of any like 20-second Rainier Wolfcastle
about.
like clip you see on The Simpsons. It's like turn in your badge, and he's like never. So it's that it's almost like it's funny because Stallone was later in Judge Dredd. It's like if Judge Dredd was made without a sense of irony and took place in the modern day. Like
Yeah. Well,
it's
and
it's
it's kind of
bizarre.
it's kind of funny. So this movie, it's like, okay, let's just talk about the plot. So Marion Cobretti, nicknamed Cobra, good for you for having that name already. Um it's like Guns Killington is he's a cop and he does things outside of the law. And there's a cult that nobody can figure out that it's a cult, despite the fact that there's like 80 of those motherfuckers. Then they walk around with giant axes. And despite that, the cult, they call the killer because they don't believe it's a cult for like half the movie. They're like, oh, he's the slasher. It's like, motherfucker, he has an axe. He's not slashing anything. But then the main cult guy does have a knife
He,
that you can
he
tell was custom made because they show it every chance they possibly can.
he's the alien bounty hunter from the X-Files who never does anything important but is in it a lot. So
Yeah, he's a super cool. Like if you saw him, his name is Brian Thompson, which is funny because that's the least scary name ever.
his name is Guy
But
Man.
yeah, I know. But he's like in Terminator. He's the one who tells Arnold like, "No laundry day, huh? No clean clothes." He's also in Mortal Kombat Annihilation. He plays Shao Kahn.
Oh
Um,
yeah, yeah.
he's in
He's a big
one.
tough guy. He almost looks like
Yeah,
the Virgin versus Chad meme. He looks like the
he's in
Chad.
Highlander.
Yeah.
He's in like every movie that needed someone to kill, but that looked tough, that could hold his own with Stallone or
Anytime someone's
or
kind of a super soldier but still needs to like the hero needs to like beat them at some point.
yeah.
This what's funny too about this cult is the way this cult works. Like the very first thing they do is they just go into a grocery store and start shooting groceries. It's like that's like what like Fox News like thought Antifa was doing like 2 years ago.
Yeah. Well,
It's like this is like the Antifa super soldier cult.
it's also funny because like so this movie has the best opening of all time. Well, okay, it doesn't have you think it's the opening because it's the most memorable part, but there's actually a previous opening where Stallone argues in favor of fascism, and then you see his Cobra gun. It is funny. His name's Cobretti, right? Like your name's already Cobretti. You don't have to get a Cobra on your gun handle. Like we know what your name is.
He
But
also
then
like
again,
he
you have a
drives a
car
classic car. Yeah.
and the car says Awesome 59, so that's just who Cobretti is. You got the Cobretti. You know how like cops are paid like that's the best part about this movie. Like you think it's unrealistic, but the fact that Cobretti is just a normal cop, but he has enough to buy like a 50s car, and also he lives in a like a beachfront property on Venice. Yeah.
Yeah,
That they're not
he,
defunding nothing in this world.
he's abusing overtime just like any cop in
Yeah,
the modern
he's not
day.
abusing overtime. He's just doing what every cop does. So anyway, this is an anti-cop. We did Copland and we talked in favor of him, guys. It's go time.
We should talk about the fact that like he's dressed like the way you'd think the coolest guy ever in the 80s would, like a leather jacket and tight jeans and like big aviators, but like
Yeah,
it's so to the point where it's so over, like he even wears the sunglasses inside that it's like he comes across as like a gay leather daddy, like
yeah. He wears them inside. He wears them in clubs. He wears them at night. And the cool thing is, they're always reflective of what's going on. So I'm 100% for more aviator glasses in movies. But so it begins, and there's like cops, and they're like a takeout. There's like like this guy walks into a grocery store and he starts shooting the produce, which I thought was interesting because it's like even in the 80s, and we're gonna get super dark right now for the Cobra review. Even in the 80s, like the idea of a mass shooter was still so like weird that like the idea of someone walking into a grocery store and killing everyone was like, no, that's too dumb and crazy. Well, welcome to 2023,
yeah.
Cobra, because it happens every week. So then like he does actually kill one person, and then they're like, we need to get the Cobra. And then there's like a scene where the two cops are talking. They're like the police chiefs, and they're like, hey, we can wait and do this amicably. And they're like, no, there's no time for order and good things. It's time to call in the Cobra. And so Cobra comes in, and then he like immediately starts taunting the guy. And he like he like goes on the overhead speaker and he's like, hey, scumbag, you wasted a kid. Now it's time for me to waste you. And by the way, if you think that you're like, wow, this is a cool line, I hope he does it for every single line of dialogue. Well, you're in luck. One of the lines is he goes, "Oh, when before he goes in there," and this is 100% the thesis of the movie. The police chief is like, "We're waiting for SWAT or whoever they're waiting for," and then Cobra goes, "Stop using your brain, start using your balls," and then he just walks in and murders the dude. And it's like, okay, yeah,
What's great though, like it's not just because the guy will be like, "Stay back, man," and like every single thing he says to this guy is a one-liner. And he's like, "You're the disease, I'm the cure," and then he's like, "I'll
yeah.
blow it up." He's like, "Go ahead, I don't shop here."
Go,
Like it's like
go ahead. I don't shop here is like the best line I've
oh,
ever
it's the
heard of
best.
someone.
It's the best line in the movie, but it's like in Popstar where he can't like decide on a catchphrase, so he just says them all one after
Yeah.
the other.
Well, like because he walks in and the guy starts shooting at him, and then he gets the overcome and he goes, "Hey, dirtbag, you're a lousy shot." Just amazing stuff. Okay, so then he kills that guy, and then he's like, "Oh, this." Oh, and then like the reporters are outside, and they're like, "Hey, shouldn't you like? What about his rights?" And instead of him being like, he was about to murder a child, so of course I had to kill him. I'm not sure I had to stab him and then shoot him when he was already dead, but that's the Cobra way. But instead of saying that, he like shows the reporter like the guy that the dude killed, and he's like, "What about his rights?" And then like the reporter should have been like, "Yeah, they should both have rights." It's kind of everyone in the country should have rights.
There's
And
like
there's literally a scene where someone says, "What about his rights?" And then like his partner goes, "That scumbag, you think he deserves rights?" It's like, yeah, it's kind of the whole basis of our society is that everyone deserves rights, even if they're bad people. Um,
right now, and
but
then
it's
this
not
movie
as
is
spread.
essentially saying like no, like because there's even a scene where some woman's like, "Why are there so many crazies out?" He's like, "Ask the judges; they keep letting them out even when we arrest them." It's like I guess we should just make life sentences for every crime is the
I
solution.
think I think what we need to
Yeah.
do, like we need to I want to make a legacy sequel where it's Cobra, but instead of like fighting crime, he's just going to gas stations and putting like Biden did that stickers next to the price because I feel like that's what he would be doing. So then he murders that dude, and then like then it cuts to Bridget Nielsen, and she's a model, and like, okay, and this is the most 80s thing again, because Bridget Nielsen's a model, and then she's like the photographer's like her friend, and he's like, "Come on, baby, let's go get drunk so I can have sex with you." And she's like, "No, I don't like you." And he's like, "What? Don't you want a career?" I'm gonna help your career. This guy is not portrayed as a bad person, by the way. This is just how things are. And then they're like, and then she's like, no, I don't want to. I'm pure, and I could only fall in love with a tough but fair cop whose name has some kind of animal in it, like a reptile or something. And he's like, come on, baby, let's have sex. And then like the axe people like immediately axe him, and I'm like, hey, net positives, we gotta. There's always
Yeah.
good stuff. So then she like runs away, and then because they're killing someone else.
Yeah, they're no, and this is okay. Well, one, we should kind of clarify. I saw this movie
Yes, they're
like
not
2 days
killing
ago.
someone else.
I don't know what the cult wants other than just to kill a lot of people because they hate America. Like, I have no idea. I don't think it goes beyond that.
They want to
Um,
bring in the new world order, but they never explain what
it's
that
just kind
means.
of, yeah, kind of a general like we hate America and the troops and God and the cops, but they kill a bunch of people in front of Bridget Nielsen. And then the whole movie, they're like, she can't be a witness to our crimes. So they're always chasing her and getting into like giant street battles with cops. But it's like, well, at this point, the cops know you like she's not a witness anymore. You're committing crimes in public. It
And
doesn't matter.
also, the cops are still like, "There's no way this is a cult." It's like,
Yeah.
dude, I've literally killed like
Oh yeah,
15 of
like
these.
like what? Yeah, Cobra gets on like a shootout with like 20 cars on the freeway, and they're like, "There's no evidence." He's like, "I no, I just drove. Like I just shot. Like 20
At
people
one
were
point,
shooting at me."
at one point, the like liberal police chief is like, hey, how do we know it's a cult? All we have is the testimony of one crazy girl. And it's like, again, guys, if we're not relying on witnesses to give stories, like that's again the base of our whole society. Um,
It's
but
also
yeah,
like, well, like the reason they're like, "Oh yeah, no, it's just one serial killer has killed hundreds of people," and then like Cobretti's like, "Well, maybe it's like a group of them." They're like, "No, that's crazy." It's like, how is that more crazy? Like that's
they're like,
not.
I don't think so, Cabretti. I'm gonna take your badge. And he's like, go ahead. I don't ever need a badge. I just need the law. That might have been a line. I don't remember. I saw this morning.
It's very, we should though.
Um,
We should talk about
oh wait,
the best scene in the
There's another
movie.
scene where he parks his car outside his house, so we know
He
he's coming
doesn't
home.
park his car.
Oh
He
yeah,
aggressively pushes a car full of like Mexicans out
Cholos,
of the
yeah,
way who aren't. I don't even think they're like leaving. He just wants to park there. It's not even like
yeah.
his
And
spot.
it's not his parking spot. And also, he would be doing this every day because Venice fills up like in a second.
He rams their car out of the way with his and then rips the guy's shirt and like
No, because the guy's like, "Hey, I said, what you gonna do with this chalupas?" And he goes, "Hey, buddy, you need to clean up your act." And then he grabs his shirt and like rips it off, and then like throws it back at him. And it's like, "Hey, Cobra, are you here to kill me or to thrill me?" Because
this is also
both can work.
this is
Also,
also when I
he goes up
noticed
to his shitty $2 million Venice Beach apartment.
like this whole scene in this like yeah he walks in his apartment, it's playing the most smooth soft 90s jazz, and that's
Yeah,
like the soundtrack for most of this movie, and it just tonally does not fit anything. Like
yeah,
it's very weird. You're like, this doesn't match.
right.
But he's reading his newspaper and then he throws it on his grill and he closes it like he's like keeping his newspaper in his grill, and then he goes in and he wants some pizza, so he cuts off a little piece of pizza with
With
scissors.
scissors. Yeah, he has his food scissors. And it's also like Cobra, he's so extra. Like everything he does is the fucking most. It's like that thing was like, you're basic. That's what I wanted to tell him every step of the. And here's the worst part, okay? Because like at night, there's like a huge Pepsi sign outside his house. Like, how do you ever sleep, Cobra? This is why you're fucking wear sunglasses all the time. Um, and then he has like an action scene. Every action scene in this movie is like the best action scene out of all the Stallone movies. I don't know why. I don't know what the who the fight choreographer was for this, but it's like because like with big guys, you can't really have them punch that much because like they just beat everyone up. So you have them shoot a lot, and so that kind of gets boring a lot of the times. But in this movie, it's like super cool because he's like flipping dudes and he's like throwing them off
Yeah,
the
because they have
roof.
axes, so they can do a
Yeah,
lot
he's
of.
like blocking axes and shit and like throwing knives. I was like, what are you doing for this movie, Stallone? It's too much. And then there's also like a scene. Once he meets Bridget Nielsen, his partner's like, hey, buddy, she's pretty hot, huh? And he's like, I was working. And he's like, oh, I guess you didn't notice. But it's like, are there any rules that you guys aren't going to break in the span of like any ethical?
There's I didn't notice this until this time watching it, but there's also this like running gag. All the jokes of this movie are like, wait, was that a joke or did he give up? Where like his partner loves sweets but doesn't love protein, so he's like, you got to stop eating sweets. It
Yeah, well, and
comes up
see,
like 5 times, so I'm like, I
here's
assume it's
the
supposed to be
thing.
funny. Yeah.
It's weird because Cobra, like, he doesn't have any personality whatsoever. He's only getting by off of quips. So it's like there's literally two scenes where Cobra has to be like a real human being, and they're both with Bridget Nielsen. But any other time, like if you were to ask, like I understand, like normally, like in Lethal Weapon, you're like, what's this police chief's deal? But in this one, you're like, no, I kind of get it. Because I'd be like, hey, Cobra, you want some coffee? And he's like, the only thing that I like that's hot and strong is me. And it's like, so is that a yes or is that a fucking no,
he
dude? I don't
he
have
is
time.
like he's more of Judge Dredd in this than Judge Dredd, where he has like a personality. It's so weird, you know.
Yeah. It's just kind of like, yeah. And he tells people he's the disease and you're the cure. And I just want to do like the prequel where he's just standing in front of like a mirror and he just practices that. Like, when should I throw it in? And then like, oh yeah, the chief goes like, hey, "Did you know you have an attitude problem?" And he goes, "Yeah, but it's just a little one." And it's like, I don't. What's the joke there? What are you talking about? And then like the night slasher goes, "The court is," because he wants to get arrested. And it's like the court is civilized, isn't it, pig? And then Cobra goes, "But I'm not." That's where the law stops and I start, sucker. And it's like, okay, but here's the thing: you can't have quips. You can't have like I do want to say, Marvel fans, you're at this stage right now. This is where you live. You Ant-Man, whatever's coming out next, you're at the Cobra stage of the franchise. And so we've long passed Total Recalls and the Rockies and the Rambos, and now we're almost at Demolition Man. And once that comes, it's all over. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, I do think it's funny. Like if you watch a movie now with the cops, like I remember a few years ago, Brooklyn Nine-Nine was like, "Hey, we're gonna tackle police brutality," and it's like, "Are you? Should you? Could you not do that?" But it's funny. Like every show has to kind of tackle the fact that police suck. But back in the 80s, like you can tell that the economy and like life was pretty good in the 80s because like the way that they thought of criminals, where now like people think of criminals as just poor people, but in the past they're like, oh, if he's a criminal, he's definitely a super psychopath who's part of a cult.
Yeah, it's like a
And like,
terror cell. Yeah.
yeah,
And not
like
only
there's
that,
like
but
guys in
like
suits and they have axes and they're like, ding, ding,
the
and they're next
problem
to hobos.
problem is like the cop, like in all of these movies, the cops aren't hard enough on who they're arresting. Like that's always the problem. It's like no, cops are too nice. That's why Cobra's here, to be mean to criminals.
Yeah, that's the fundamental problem. It's like, yeah, I'd rather have at this point, I'd rather have a Cobretti because he only seems to kill people that try to kill him first. He doesn't stop. Never mind. This is a fun movie, guys. So yeah, I mean, like, here's the thing: you have to really be in the right mood for this movie. And here's the other thing: even if you are, and if you're super stoned out of your mind, you're gonna get pretty bored for about 45
Ye-
minutes. And it's
ye-
not a long movie; it's like an hour and
it's
20 minutes.
it's yeah, this well, and if you don't want to watch it, just watch through the opening like 10
Yeah.
minutes where he's in the grocery store, because you get everything you're gonna get out of this movie in
Once
that
he
scene.
leaves that grocery store, there's no
And
need
actually,
for.
wait till he cuts up the pizza with scissors, then you
Oh
can
yeah,
turn
that's
it
pretty funny.
off, because
Yeah.
that's
It's like us, like honestly, and this is so weird, but to me it makes sense. It's I feel like this movie takes place in the Pee Wee's Playhouse universe, where like if you told me his car was alive, I'd be like, yeah, that makes
It's also,
sense, you know?
well, and it's like he also has these like leather gloves, and he's like eating the pizza with the gloves. It's like you're getting pizza grease all over your gloves, Cobretti. Like I don't know, just every detail. And he's like, imagine you had a neighbor, and you know that your neighbor's a cop, but you just see him walk into his house in his sunglasses and gloves and start cutting up a pizza with scissors, and you're like, I think he's having a stroke.
Yeah, and
Like
you're like,
he's
oh, hey, my nephews came to visit. They're just hanging out outside the car because they wanted to check out the beach. And then he comes in, he's not wearing a shirt. And they're like, what happened? Were you trying to fuck with him? It's like, no, he crashed into us and then he tore off my shirt. Oh, I did mention this at the beginning, so I feel I just have to cover it. Also, we're trying to get to 30 minutes and we're very far away. Um, so there's a scene when Bridget Nelson gets caught, like they're chasing her, and there's a security guard, and she's trying to she's trying to open the elevator. The elevator opens, the security guard comes out, pushes her away from the elevator, and then starts shooting at the car that's coming at him, and then it just rams into him. And at no point does he ever like try to get out of the way. He's just like, this is my fate. This is the I saw 300. All I think I need to do is, and not only that, if he had taken 4 steps back and gotten into the elevator, the walls would have protected him. But since he chose not to do that, he died the most vicious death out of everyone in this movie. Although apparently there's like a director's cut. Like there's a girl that they meet at the beginning, and she's just kind of like she goes like there's like a female bad guy who
Oh,
I don't remember if she comes
she's the
back.
only female cop in the movie, and she turns out to secretly be like brainwashed by the cult, which is another
Yeah,
like way this movie is weirdly fascist. Is like, oh, all like the one female cop is actually a criminal, you know?
yeah, yeah. And so like they like stop her and then they murder like this girl who tries to help them. But like originally in the unrated cut, they cut off her hands and her head, and it's honestly like Stallone, what movie? Like you're not making Silence of the Lambs here. We don't need to see like arms and hands and legs and feet get cut off.
It's like
You
it's very like because remember when Rambo the last one or maybe second to
yeah.
last I can't remember was he like a huge hit and he's like, oh, I want to do another one where like an alien chases him through the woods. It's like, do you know what people like about your
Yeah.
movies?
Well, and it's funny, like, okay, so the last Rambo called Last Blood. The Rambo that Josh was talking about is Rambo. It's the fourth one. It's actually the last good one. But Last Blood is terrible. But
I haven't seen
also,
it.
if you watch it as a sequel to this movie instead of Rambo, it makes so much more sense. Because he's like cutting off people's heads. He like goes and starts fights for no reason. And it's like, that's not what Rambo does. Rambo's whole movie series is him trying to run away from fights. He doesn't go into fights head on. But you know who does? Marion Cobra Cobretti. So watch Last Blood. Oh, by the way, that doesn't make the movie good.
Yeah, I mean, I never heard anything great about it. So
It's still a bad movie because Cobra's also a bad movie, but at least doesn't ruin the legacy of a pretty good film franchise that only has 2 or 3 missteps. I love you, Stallone. I'll cover you forever, baby.
well,
Um,
that's why like I do almost feel like the very like a lot of people, especially like our age and like younger, have not seen like the first Rocky or the first First Blood, or it's like, these are like real well made thoughtful movies. Like he is a really good like director and writer, but then also he's making Cobra. It's like he is capable of doing really good stuff. So it's
yeah, no,
almost
I mean
frustrating.
Stallone is. That's the thing. I wouldn't say it's frustrating. I just think it's cool. Like you have directors who are so scared to take chances and like do stuff, and like Stallone is not one of those directors. Every movie he's done has taken a huge risk. From Rambo, from rewriting First Blood and getting an Academy Award nomination, to Holding Out. They originally wanted Paul Newman to star in Rocky, and he chose not to because he wanted to star, and he took like a huge pay cut. To even like this movie, to making the new Rambo's that became huge hits. to like even bowing out of Creed. Like Stallone, like say what you will about Stallone, he's definitely made some stinkers, but he takes risks. And it's the same thing with Vin Diesel. Like Vin Diesel made The Last Witch Hunter, which is fucking terrible. But like the fact that he decided he wanted to make a movie about his D&D character and then did that, it's like, hey, that's pretty fucking cool. Even if the movie didn't like, I would rather have that than someone making uh 22 movies that are exactly the same and trying to make me go see a movie just because it had Jonathan Majors in it. It's not going to happen. You've already lost the goodwill by being the same movie 22 times. So this was our very positive, healthy
Yeah, really.
review of Cobra.
You know, I will say we're never going to do The Last Witch Hunter. It's got like a good third in there. The first third's pretty good. So,
Yeah,
I mean,
who knows?
So I'm
And
finding the good in
then
The Last Witch Hunter in our
the good
Gopher
in the last,
review.
the good in the last witch hunter is the part where he's a witch hunter, not the part where he's the last one. So yeah, guys, come back. We are doing a Super Mario next week, but it's gonna seem like we recorded that one first because Andrew doesn't know how to tell time. And as the same thing with that one, after Super Mario Brothers, we're gonna take a little break, and you'll find out why when we come back. But so join us for that. Thank you guys for watching so far. Sorry, this one was a little negative. It's been a rough week. Um,
It's a weird movie. It's a
and
weirdly
it's
like
it's
Republican movie.
yeah, it's
It's
fine. It's just like it's weird because it's against my ideals, like in every way, but it's also so dumb that it's hard to take seriously.
right. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, if we hadn't took this, like if you turned something that's super dumb but also against every idea I ever had, and you made him run for president, he probably would win, and then I'd have to vote for Joe Biden just to make sure he got out of there. But anyway, we will see you guys next time on the Bomb Squad, where we take a trip down to Mushroom Land and go see the new Super Mario Brothers, or maybe the old one. We'll figure it out. See you guys on the flip side. Thanks for watching the Bomb Squad. Please, while you're here, give us a like and a subscribe. We really appreciate it, and it means a lot.